Yo, 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 what it is? Welcome to Man Up Friday with Mike, your mentor. I appreciate you guys being here. If you're watching this live, you can throw on a hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. Show me some love. Give me some likes, some comments. Welcome. So, brief intro if you're new to this page. This page is an attempt for me to take all of the wisdom that I've learned over my short 38 years from going through some pretty crazy stuff on my life and trying to instill that into others, right? To make this world a better place. I feel like I'm called to encourage men, to help lift men up to a higher standard, and to help them answer the higher calling that we have on our lives as husbands, as fathers, as leaders in our community, because we've gotten away from that, and that's why the world is what it is. If you want more on my background and the different things that I've been through, and where this wisdom and this knowledge comes from, I've shared those stories plenty of times. Just feel free to watch some of the older videos. So the whole purpose behind Man Up Friday is to share what I learned by going through this course. So to give you a little context, if you don't know, um, man, I did some pretty crappy stuff to my wife before we got married. I wasn't truthful about it. I lied to her, and it came out 2 weeks into our marriage. And only because of the grace of God and His interaction, she decided to give me another chance, and we upped and literally moved overnight to Chicago, where she had been for 5 years. And I found myself, as I had to live with the consequences of what I did and that coming to light, I found myself not knowing who I was anymore. I found myself depressed. I found myself not sure if I wanted to be married. It was just confusion. And I needed help, but I didn't know what type of help I needed. So through circumstance, through luck, through divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, I was told about this church, and I just happened to go there. And they had a men's group that was starting this course, and it appealed to me, and I signed up, right? Took a chance. And it was in this course that all these hard questions started being asked of the men at my table, the strangers that none of us knew each other at this table, because they had us in groups of 5 to 6 guys. And as we got real about what was going on in our lives, because we were all at different points in our lives and in different periods in our marriage. We had one guy who wasn't married, one guy who was coming off a nasty divorce, trying to get his life back together. So just all these different walks of life, right? And as we got real about our crap and the questions that were posed in this course, light bulbs started going off in my head. And I had to make a decision that I could either continue on the course that I was, or I could go back into my past and face some of the things that I had been extremely fearful and had never dealt with up until that point, and look those things in the eye, and decide to fight for my family, to fight for my manhood, to fight for whatever was in store for me in the future, whatever kids I ended up bringing in to the world, the legacy that I was going to live. And it was extremely tough. It was extremely excruciating. There were a lot of tears. A lot of times I wanted to quit and throw in the towel. But through dealing with these things, and as I began to challenge myself and face these things and stare them down, I discovered that they weren't insurmountable, and that they weren't, in effect, as scary as I thought they were, or that my mind was trying to tell me that they were. And this workbook that we went through was called The Quest for Authentic Manhood. And the saying that you don't know what you don't know is so true. They don't teach this stuff in school. And my guess is the only way you get it is if you actively go out in the world and you know where to look and you search for it, or through some coincidence, it comes into your life. So, since this material changed my life and made such an effect on me, um, part of my calling is to do the same for other men. So that's what Man Up Friday is we go through this content by Dr. Robert M. Lewis. It's not mine. And I hope that you approach it with an open mind, in that you take out a piece of paper and a pen, or open up, I don't know, Evernote on your phone and take some notes, and just let your conscience, let your spirit talk to you, and put its finger on some things that are shared, so that you can think about it, and so that it can encourage you to make a difference in your life and just become the man that you were created to be, the husband you were created to be, the father you were created to be, the leader in whatever community, whatever circle of influence you have, that you were created to be. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll jump into this. Oh, ew, don't like that. Kind of change this out a second. A little finicky. There you go. Bam. All right, a biblical definition of manhood, part 2. One more thing. This is in the way. All right, and like I explained last week, for the people that are coming on just this week and catching this, so you can ask any a group of men when they became men, and you'll get a whole bunch of different answers, right? When I drank my first beer, when I don't know, did drugs for the first time, when I slept with a woman for the first time, when I was able to fully support myself for the first time, when I turned 21. Like in Western society, there is no rite of passage from becoming a boy to a man, for the most part. So we're left to figure that out on our own, especially if we come up in a single family or a single parent home, where our mothers are raising us, and maybe we don't have a lot of manly influences on our life, because only men can bestow manhood on another man. So these pictures all represent, I guess, the image or the model of the ideal man when I was coming up, or when I was growing up. So in the upper left hand corner, you have Clint Eastwood portraying as a character in the movie Dirty Harry. Like he was take no prisoners. He did what he wanted. If he wanted something, he took it. And then there was the guy in the middle, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? The ultimate physique. Just this guy who was like a physical, like a god, right? And that's how you needed to look, and women would adore you. And then you have one who's maybe more modern age today, and that's The Rock, right? And this is what manhood looks like, or society says manhood looks like. And then you had Michael Jordan, right? Probably the most dominant or most well-known athlete on the planet, and he was legendary for his competitive spirit and his refusal to give up, and to let down, and to be beaten, the ultimate competitor. And then we had Rocky Balboa, portrayed by Sylvester Stallone. And this is with a picture of pull yourself up from your bootstraps, and no matter what happens to you, if you just stick with something and put everything that you have into it, you'll obtain whatever that is. So all these are different pictures of what society says manhood is supposed to look like. So I thought this was fitting as kind of a backdrop for this section. So quick review from last week, right? So we discovered that men were created by God to be social and spiritual leaders. And when men abandon this pursuit, or when this pursuit is taken away from them, chaos ensues. And we saw this in Scripture. You can look this up in Isaiah 3, 1 through 12. And we see it play out today, right? Because men become confused, they're directionless, and they're troubled. And I think about my own journey to discover manhood and the people I hurt along the way and the damage I did to myself and my identity and my self-esteem as I tried to figure this out. And then, women suffer because they have to fight for their equality and their protection because wounded men don't know how to honor the women in their life. And we've gotten so far away from what real honor looks like in society. It's just crazy. It just blows my mind every day. The stories I hear, the things I see. Call me old school, but you know what? I'm all about honor, and I think honor and love are the two things that could completely transform this world. And not enough people know what those things really look like. Another thing that we see today is family life is harmed, right? And children are hurt when men don't have the correct understanding of manhood. And then, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, society becomes troubled because men forfeit their responsibilities as fathers, as husbands, as leaders in their community. And once again, all we do is got to turn on the TV, look outside our window, and see what craziness is going on in this world. And it's a direct reflection of men not stewarding these responsibilities that they've been given. So tonight, the male leadership of Genesis is not natural, but it's supernatural with specific responsibilities. This is a little bit of more of review. We talked about how God is looking for someone to say, I'll take these responsibilities on with your help. And men are given a mandate, right? They're given a will to obey. Why is it that we fight within ourselves, right, to do good, or to do evil, or maybe not even evil? Maybe it's to be rebellious, or to go away from what is honorable, right? The decision to join in and bully somebody, maybe online, or to speak life to them, to encourage them, to lift them up. And you just have to go on any Facebook page, any Facebook group, on most sites on the internet, and check out the comments, and you see this play out in real time. And we are given a work to do, right? Like, we have a responsibility as men to be providers of our family. And that's not a distinction of who makes the most money or not if your spouse works. It's simply that we've been given a responsibility to help provide for our family. So as men, we get off our butts and we go and we do work every single day, whatever that looks like for you, so that you can contribute to your family. My grandpa would always say to me, are you, how would he phrase that? Are you a giver or are you a taker? Are you a giver or are you a taker? And then finally, we're given a woman to love, right? To care for, protect, and lead with God's truth, right? To speak to their identity and who they were created to be, and to come alongside them and everything that looks like. And then finally, we're given a decision, right? Because at any point you can choose to take on these responsibilities and step into a noble masculinity of leadership. So that's a quick review from last week, and now let's jump into tonight's what the heck? Okay, yeah, alright. This is it. Okay, I was on the wrong slide, my bad. So we just went over all this. Alright, here we go. Tonight's content. Alright, so we're going to take a look at two men, and we're going to you're going to be able to compare and contrast two masculine identities. So we're going to look at Adam, and we're going to look at Jesus Christ. And I want to read a short passage from you. And once again, as we go through this, keep an open mind, because we're going to talk about some distinctions between these two people, these two characters, and what that distinction means for us as men, and how we can approach that. So 15:45 through 49. All right, and so it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam, which is Jesus Christ, became a life-giving spirit. However, the spiritual is not first, but the natural, and afterwards the spiritual. The first man was of earth, made of dust. The second man is the Lord, from heaven. As was the man of dust, so also are those who are made of dust. And as is the heavenly man, so also are those who are heavenly. And as we have borne the image of the man of dust, Adam, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly man, which is God. So I think this quote from theologian Herman Ritterboss sums it up, right? Adam and Christ stand against each other as two great figures to the entrance of two worlds, two creations, the old and the new. In their actions and fates lie the decisions for all who belong to them, because all men are comprehended in them, right? We fight that duality inside of us every single day. So I want to read one more thing to you, and then we're going to start to break this down. So Romans 5:17 through 19, for if by one man's offense death reigned through the one, much more those who receive abundance of grace and of the gift of righteousness will reign in life through the one, Jesus Christ. Therefore, as though one man's offense, judgment, came to all men, resulting in condemnation, even so through one man's righteous act the free gift came to all men, resulting in justification of life. For as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so also by one man's obedience many will be made righteous. Right? So you're probably asking yourself, I don't know, if you don't read the Bible, like, yo, what's up with that story? Like, okay, like, how does this apply to me? Why do I care? Why should I look at this? And here's why. These two men, Adam and Jesus, are elders of two distinct masculine destinies. The first Adam represents a manhood, and we talked about Adam last week, right? That is set on a natural course. And what I mean by that is he only thought about his life. He didn't give any thought to his eternity or his legacy, right? And a legacy is not just what you leave behind for others, but it's also what you leave in others. And then his manhood was also based on personal instinct, was based on human reason and reaction, not revelation. See, he thought he had it all figured out. and he didn't need anybody's help. And that's what got him in trouble. And we've talked about that before on this page, right? About trying to do life alone. There's no such thing as a self-made man. We were made for relationship, and we all have blind spots. And unless we have people in our life that we can trust and that can be honest with us, we're not going to be able to identify those blind spots, and they're going to cause us a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. Right? So in this Adam, his manhood was self-made, self-decided, self-willed, and self-centered in the end. He only cared about himself. And his manhood was one that draws life from others. Right? And last week we talked about this climactic scene in Genesis where the woman is tempted by the serpent to eat the fruit from a certain tree in this garden that they were put in charge over. And the woman goes to eat the fruit, and Adam is there in that scene, but he's just watching all this play out. And this is just a conjecture, but it's very plausible that what was going through Adam's mind at that time, because God told them that if they ever ate of that fruit of that tree that they would surely die. Right? So in Adam's mind, he might have been thinking, if she eats the fruit and she lives, I win because I still get her. On the other hand, though, if she eats the fruit and she dies, I'm not responsible because I'm not the one who gave it to her. So what that says is, by not stepping forward, right, to interject himself in that situation, he was using his wife for his own ends. Right? So obviously a very selfish act. And therefore his manhood represents one that represents a life without transcendent meaning. He was all about himself and all about the here and now. And then you remember in that verse I read, it said he was just a living soul, nothing more. And this is just this just boils down to he was being reduced just to his existence, right? Floating along in life. Now we're going to take a look at the second Adam, right? Jesus, and what he represents about manhood. And his manhood was set on a heavenly course. Jesus declared, "Thy kingdom come." And that was what came after this life that we know. He was always moving with it. Instead of having his head down in this experience of life, he had his head up in what was coming after this life. And he yielded to revelation, right? The second part of that, thy kingdom come, was thy will be done. And therefore he lived his life not by personal instinct, not by human reason or reaction, but rather and not by what might have seemed right in the moment. But he lived by every word that proceeded from the mouth of God. And what that means is he knew his identity. And you see this play out in the Bible. There's a scene of Jesus, and he goes to be baptized by John the Baptist. And when he's baptized and then he's coming up out of the water, the scene says the heavens split, and God's voice comes down and said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." Right? God was affirming his identity to him. And how many men don't know their identity? They don't know what their Creator says about them. They don't know why they're here. And they're just wandering aimlessly through life, looking for direction, trying to figure out what true manhood looks like, causing destruction and leaving a ton of collateral damage along the way. See, Jesus' manhood was one that empowered others. And Jesus said it himself, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and give my life for others. See, his manhood was one that was full of transcendent meaning. He also said, my kingdom is not of this world. In this, he was declaring neither are his values or his way of life, right? He wasn't all about what society says or what society believed was to be true. And finally, Jesus' manhood, and in his person, he was a life-giving spirit. Wherever he went, he gave life to people. He lifted them up. He encouraged them. And he held them to a higher calling, right? And that's the type of manhood that we want to have. We want to be the type of men that when we go into a room, people take notice because we're lifting people up. We're building people up. We have an energy that's giving life to people rather than sucking the life out of them and getting everything that we can from those people, right? It's interesting. I belong to a couple of groups on Facebook for my business, and the way people interact, and you have two distinct type of people. You have one set of people who come into the group and immediately they just try to take, right? They either try to immediately sell their services or they try to posture or peacock, right? Like say, look at me, because they're thinking of what can they get from the group. And then you have a completely other group of people who take the complete opposite approach, and their mindset is what can I first give to the group, right? How can I add value to this community before I ask for anything in return? And that's an example of what the manhood that Jesus had for us to model is in every situation. What can we add to that situation? What can we bring to that situation that brings life into that situation versus trying to first take and get whatever we can from that situation. So I want to leave you with one last thought before we wrap this up tonight, and that is this. Real men give life. Boys take life. So maybe you might want to write that down and let that serve you or serve as a reminder to you as you go about your life and you're faced with the opportunity or a situation in your life every single day where you have the choice. Am I going to be a man and give life to this situation, or am I going to be a boy and take life from this situation? So thank you for tuning in and checking this out tonight and this content. I hope that it made a difference in your life. If it did, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, or I'd be interested to see what you guys think. And if you know any brothers that could use the stuff that we're talking about on this page, please tag them, share these videos with them. It's because of you guys and and the part that you're playing in this and supporting me that these videos have literally gone all around the world. I talk to people from India. I talk to people from Germany, from the UK, from the Middle East, all over the place. There's, God is stirring something up in the hearts of men as men are realizing that we have more to offer society. And the distinction is, how are we going to go about doing that? And it all goes back to this final comment. Are we going to give life, or are we going to take life? And I think a lot of men are realizing that for a long time we've bought into the lie that we need to take, take, consume, right? And now we're waking up and realizing that no, it's not about taking and what I can get. It's about what can I give, what can I bring, and it's right. It's a small distinction, right? Two opposite ends of the paradigm, but when we come to that realization and we actually not only make that choice up here, but also make that choice in here, it begins to change everything. And that's just what we need to do. So, men, like it or not, believe it's fair or not, we have a higher calling on our lives as fathers, as husbands, as leaders in our community. So, thanks for tuning in. I encourage you to walk that out every single day. Don't be a person who just knows what to do. Be a person who actually lives it. And if I could help anybody, whether you need some advice or you just need someone to listen because you're dealing with something and you need to get freedom by getting that off your chest and bringing that to the light so that shame, guilt, condemnation can have no more control over you or no more part in your life. Hey man, I'm here to listen because I've been there. I know what it's like. And there were times where I just needed somebody to come alongside me and offer up a judgment-free zone where I could just be real and lay it all on the line and say, here's the shit I'm dealing with. So if you need that or anything like that, hit me up. I'm here for you guys. I love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Saturday shout out. Have a good night.